Now you can see in action how useful that tool is, because I had one hand devoted to my top tool, one hand devoted to my hammer, and no hands to keep it on the anvil. What's up everybody, I'm Derek, this is Rocking eForge. Today we're going to make a holdfast for going in the pritchel hole of your anvil for those times when you need more than two hands. Now, since I'm using an old U-bolt, I want to get rid of this threaded section. Once I add a nice little round taper to the end of this, it should fit flawlessly in the pritchel hole all the way down. And that's what you want. You want freedom of movement all the way up and down the shank, because it's not the shank inside the pritchel hole that is holding it there. It's the tension in the steel between the shank and the foot that holds everything together. Now I'm going to bring this to the horn of the anvil and hammer down on that body side corner to give me a little more space to work with. Now you may be wondering at this point why I left the other threaded portion of this U-bolt. The reason for that is just so that when I get to the point where I'm fitting this to the anvil, I want to make sure I have enough material left to reach out to my desired point. Now with the amount of material here, that shouldn't be a problem, but it's always good to give yourself a little wiggle room because you can't get that steel back once you cut it off. Now the closer you are to having a shank that's already a ½ inch round, the less tapering you have to do, the less work you have to do, and the less fiddling you have to do to make sure it fits in the hole. Now most pritchel holes are a ½ inch round, but not all, so make sure you start with a piece of round stock that is sized to fit your pritchel hole. And it's worth noting, while using that U-bolt gives you a lot of that shape pre-established, it would be much less unwieldy if you're using just a straight piece of round stock. Got to keep walking that up the shank. Now by no means do I recommend you pounding this into the pritchel hole, because it could get stuck and that would be a travesty. If it's cold enough, you should be able to hammer it back out without too much trouble. But if it's too hot at the end, you risk upsetting that and then riveting it into your pritchel hole, which would be very bad. However, what it does do for you, the shiny spots give you an idea of where the shank is contacting the inside of the hole and where you need to thin things down. But you want the shank to go in the pritchel hole nice and smooth so that you're not fighting the tool to go down into the pritchel hole deep enough to actually hold the piece that you're punching or chiseling. Now the next step is setting the height of the body and the location of the foot. And for this particular one, I want it to be 8 inches out from the pritchel hole, which is right here. Now the easiest way I've found to set the size and location of the foot and make sure that the foot actually contacts the face of the anvil is just put it in the pritchel hole and then hammer down on it so that the foot is flat. Now I'm using the round side of my hammer to get spread, but if you don't have a rounding hammer, spread this however you think you need to. Now this must be going to somebody with a massive anvil, because I personally wouldn't use something this long. I like to have my foot a little closer to the hardy hole so that I have more room to work out on the face of the anvil, but this is all up to personal preference, so do what makes you happy. Trying to get a spot that's flat for my touch mark is going to be tough. Now I had the idea there we go, to use my top fuller instead of trying to hammer down. Give me a little more repeatable result and a little more control as to where I put the divot. This will probably need to be straightened after I'm finished. Now you can see in action how useful that tool is, because I had one hand devoted to my top tool, one hand devoted to my hammer, and no hands to keep it on the anvil. The next step is to touch mark and get everything brushed up and looking nice. Let's give this a brushing and we'll be done. Now if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, drop a comment, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell. If you want to support the channel and make sure I can afford to keep making content, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon, where you get exclusive access to director's cuts of my videos, occasional surveys where you can directly impact the content that I produce, your name or username in the credits of every video I produce from here on out, and more as the channel grows. So thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you on the next one.